Well, hot damn. Greetings and salutations, everybody. Welcome to the John Campea podcast. On this Saturday edition, got a whole bunch of stuff that we're going to be talking about here. And, I love doing shows on the weekends because they're not expected. They're not required. We don't have to do a show on the weekend. And it's always fun when I get to jump on here and do one anyway, regardless, because it's just, I don't know, I get more fun out of it that way. Anyway, special hello and thank you to everybody who is here watching the show live on the Saturday. So you may be watching the show pre-recorded at any time. That's great. But just so you know, I do the show. I've been testing out doing it live every day at 9 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, Monday through Friday. And then once in a while on the weekends here, just for fun, I like to throw some things in if we get some really good questions or if we're really starting to get backed up in the amount of questions people are sending in to me. So how do you get a question sent into me for the John Campea podcast? It's simple. You simply email me at thejohncampeapodcast@gmail.com. That's the John Campea podcast at gmail.com. Got a couple things I'm going to announce today that I'm kind of nervous and excited about all at the same time, but I'll get to that stuff near the end of the show. So here's what I'm going to do today. I've picked out 6 questions from the emails that you guys have sent in. You can see what those questions are if you look in the description of the video. You can get kind of a sneak preview as to what we're going to be covering here. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to save a few minutes to go to the live chat board for the people in the chat and take your guys' questions from there. So with all that out of the way, let's jump into the first question of the day. And the first question today that we're taking comes to us from Andreas Gallego, who writes, guys, I'm terrible with names. Anyway, while waiting in line for a test screening for a studio film, the folks running the screening asked a video editor to leave, saying nobody working in the industry can attend these screenings. My question is, why do studios deem it necessary to leave creatives that work in the film industry out of the testing process when they can possibly help better the film? Yeah, that's a great question. I get these emails all the time, and Ann gets these emails all the time because she signed up for some new newsletters, whatever, that said, hey, come be a part of a test screening of this movie that's not coming out for another 5 months or whatever, right? But they always say in the invites, anybody who works in the film industry, a part of the movie or television making industry, or works in film reviews or blogging about films, blah, 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 cannot attend these screenings. So clearly somebody went to one of these screenings that Andreas is talking about, and they were a video editor working in the industry, I assume. And they said, you can't be here. So what Andreas is asking is like, well, wouldn't you want that guy's opinion? Here's the thing. I understand why I'm not allowed to go to these things. I understand why somebody like that video editor is not allowed to go to these things. Because here's the thing. The studio has tons of video editors working for them. They have tons of industry people working for them. They hear the industry people's input all the time on their movies. They work with industry people. What the studio is looking for in test screenings is, what does the average moviegoer think of our movie so far? That's what they're looking for. They're not looking for the opinion of a video editor in the industry, because they've got 500 video editors working for them on their lots that they can go and ask their opinions anytime if they want them. That's not the important opinion. They already know what they think of their movie from a filmmaking point of view. What they're looking for in these test screenings is the average opinion of the average ordinary film goer. Not film critics, not video editors, not screenwriters, not actors, not whatever. They can get those opinions other places. For these test screenings, they want to hear what the average film fan has to say. And if you have people who work in the industry like me or like video editors or whatever in there, you are diluting your test sample. You're messing up your test sample. You're contaminating your test sample, because then you're not getting a true representation of what the average film goer is thinking of your movie so far. And these test screenings are important for these studios with their films. They get a lot of information, a lot of valuable information from these test screenings. So it's important that they do that. It's important they maintain the integrity of it, that it's just average film goers. So even though I always get bummed, like I'll get a screening invitation for a movie I'm really looking forward to that doesn't come out for another 4 or 5 months, but I can't go because I'm disqualified. And that's fine. I mean, I have other advantages. That's great too, but it's only fair test screenings or for average fans? Anyway, I hope that clears that up. Jump into the chat board. Let me know your thoughts and what you think about all that kind of stuff. Anyway, let's move on to the next question. And the next question today comes to us from Linus Knight, who writes, "Hi, John. Love the show. I try to watch every day." Well, thank you so much, Linus. Just by the way, my name, John, is with an H. So my name is John. John Schnepp is Jon. But anyway, I try to watch the show every day. Thank you so much. What do you think about the sequel to Spider-Man Homecoming actually being called Spider-Man: The Secret Avenger? Thanks a lot for the question, Linus. Look, you would not believe how many emails and questions I get that all revolve around this one specific thing. What do you think about Spider-Man sequel being called this? Or what do you think about Spider-Man Homecoming sequel being called Spider-Man The New Avenger? What do you think about the new Spider-Man being called Spider-Man Rise of the Goblin? What do you think about this new, like, seriously, you'd be shocked how many of these emails I get. It's crazy. And basically, look, all the titles people have said to me, Spider-Man, The New Avenger, Spider-Man, The Secret Avenger, Spider-Man, Rise of the Goblin, Spider-Man this, Spider-Man that, Spider-Man's Big Adventure. Whatever, like all the titles people send me, those sound great. Yeah, that sounds great. But here's the problem. How can you possibly have an idea as to what would be a good title for this movie when you know nothing about the movie? Like, let's say, hey, John, what would you think about the name of the next Avengers? Let's say this is after the first Avengers movie. And somebody said, hey, John, what would you think about the title of Avengers 2 being Avengers 2, the Loki's Revenge? There you go. Avengers 2, Loki's Revenge. What do you think about? Should they make the title that? Well, the main point of Avengers 2 is Ultron, and Loki has nothing to do with Avengers 2. So why would that be a good title? So basically the point is, it's difficult for me at this point, or any of us at this point, to be throwing around what we think titles of the new Spider-Man should be when we have no idea where the MCU is going to be, and we have no idea where Spider-Man is going to be, and we have no idea what the plot of Spider-Man 2 is going to be. Like, we just don't know. So we can say, what if we call it Spider-Man: The Secret Avenger? Well, what if it's big and public in Avengers Infinity War, the next Avengers film? What if it becomes big and public that Spider-Man's a new Avenger? Then that would make no sense to call the next Spider-Man film Spider-Man: The Secret Avenger. So I like to, all the titles I'm hearing from people are great creative titles, but they might be horrible titles for the movie because we don't know anything about the movie yet. So I'm going to reserve all my judgment on that for now. But what are some other cool titles you think? Like, just forget about the fact, the plot. What do you think of some cool titles? What do you think would be some of the most ridiculous titles for the next Spider-Man Homecoming? Start sharing your ideas in the chat board with each other. Let me know what you think. All right, let's move on to the next question. And the next question on this Saturday comes to us from Pablo. And Pablo writes, "Hey, John, huge fan of the new show." Thank you so much, Pablo. "The Iron Giant is one of my favorite animated movies. The movie underperformed in 1999 due to poor marketing. Afterwards, the film gathered a big following and is now widely regarded as a modern animated classic. So my question is, with all the success Disney has had with their live-action movies, do you think Warner Brothers should try doing a live-action Iron Giant movie?" Good question. I mean, we get a lot of questions about, hey, should they do a live action, this live action, that, all that kind of stuff. But you know what, Pablo? I think you are bang on the money. I really do. Not every movie that was good in the past, I think, would be set up well for a modern incarnation or a modern telling. But I think you are bang on. I think the Iron Giant, not only, going to your point in the email, not only do people love the Iron Giant and do people think very fondly of the Iron Giant and have a strong nostalgia, not just nostalgia factor, but it's a super high quality movie. Not only that, but if you really look at the Iron Giant, that movie would make a great live action movie. That movie would look fantastic and I think really lends itself to being a modern live action movie. Now, we know Steven Spielberg's going to be using the Iron Giant in Ready Player One. He actually even said recently that the Iron Giant is going to be a major character. And that doesn't mean the Iron Giant's going to be in a lot of the movie. Just maybe it means he does something very important in the movie. But we know we're going to see the Iron Giant in Ready Player One, which is fantastic. But yeah, I'm going to say I'm 100% on board with you, Pablo. I think a live action Iron Giant movie by Warner Brothers, I think that would be a stroke of genius. And I would be surprised if Warner Brothers either hasn't already in the past or isn't already currently looking at possibly doing something like that, because I think it could be quite successful. I mean, it's set up that it could be good, could be a disaster too, could be horrible, but also has a lot of potential to make a lot of money. So yeah, Pablo, I like the idea. All right, let's move on to the next question. And the next question comes to us from Chad Joyce. And Chad Joyce writes, "Hey John, huge fan since the AMC days. Thank you so much, Chad. Will Henry Cavill continue playing Superman in future DCEU films? Ever since the rebranding of the DCEU, Ben Affleck possibly leaving, no Man of Steel 2 announcement at Comic-Con, and the lukewarm response to Man of Steel, I can't help but become suspicious. He is my favorite cinematic Superman, but I wouldn't be surprised if Warner Brothers booted him in an effort to further separate the new DCEU brand from the old one." Okay, it's a fair observation. You guys know what I think of Henry Cavill. I think, and I know it's sacrilegious to say because of Christopher Reeve, I think Henry Cavill is the best Superman we've ever had. I think he's just done a marvelous job with the character. And, some people say, how can you say that when Superman did this in the movie? Well, you got to learn the difference between what the character has to do because it's in the script and what performance the character brings to the character, or what the actor brings to the character. And I think the performance that Henry Cavill has brought to Superman is probably only second to the performance that Ben Affleck has brought to Batman. And so I think he's spectacular. I think I think Man of Steel is woefully underrated. I think it's one of the 10 best comic book movies ever made. Do I think that they are positioning or getting ready to boot out Henry Cavill? No, I don't. I think it would be foolish for several reasons. But the thing is this, you don't start booting out characters. Like, there are some exceptions, absolutely, and I think Ben Affleck is probably falling under one of those exceptions, but you don't start booting out several major characters unless you're rebooting the franchise. Like, if Warner Brothers tomorrow wanted to announce, for whatever reason, that we're rebooting the DCEU and we're starting over, okay, at that point, I would go, all right, yeah, I guess you got to get rid of this person, you got to get rid of that person, you need a new cast, and then I would understand. But Henry Cavill has been a wonderful Superman. I think Man of Steel was great. And I think the fact that they haven't, I talked about this on the podcast the other day, I think the reason they haven't made any announcements or any public information about Man of Steel 2 is because I think they can't basically let us know what's up with Man of Steel 2 until Justice League comes out. Because I think Justice League is going to give us a new context for Superman, and then they can say, now we're going to let you know that we are planning on Man of Steel 2. I don't know 100% for sure that that's what they're doing. I don't know. I'm just saying, as a fan, my assumption at this point, and assumptions are dangerous, but my assumption at this point is that I think Warner Brothers has plans for Man of Steel 2, and I just think strategically they're not revealing those plans at this point because they're waiting for Justice League to come out, because that would be a more appropriate time. So personally, I think so. No, I don't think Warner Brothers has any plans to dump Henry Cavill. I don't think they have any plans to reboot the entire DCEU at this point. I think they're happy with Henry Cavill. I know I'm happy with Henry Cavill. So I think Henry Cavill is going to be our Superman for the foreseeable future. All right. Thanks a lot for the question, man. All right. We move on to the next one. And the next question comes to us from Brandon, who writes, "Hey, John, I know you have a visual effects background, so I have a VFX-related question for you. Is the main driver behind CGI's high cost the computer rendering, or is it the cost of someone digitally altering each frame, or is it something else? Related to this question, assuming that computers continue to get faster and more efficient over time, in 10 plus years, could CGI become much less expensive to do?" Thanks a lot for the question, Brendan. Yeah, so a lot of people don't know that in a previous life, a previous professional life, I should say, I worked in the visual effects industry. I was a producer and a client service manager for a visual effects company. We did 3D animation and visual effects. And our firm, we worked on films like, we did work on Sin City, we did work on League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, we did work on Spy Kids 2. Anyway, we did work on a lot of films, and I got to work in that industry a lot. And I can tell you that the main expense is not the computer rendering, although that is expensive. Because what happens is, let me tell you a little story. about like back in the day when I used to work at the place. One of the most time consuming things we had was not only after doing all the visual effects work, but then telling the computers to render it. Now, every frame we had, each second of footage that we would get had 24 frames per second of footage, okay? So, I don't know, I don't have a calculator in front of me. So if we had a minute worth of footage, that's 60 seconds times 24 frames, and that's how many frames we had to render just for 1 minute. 24 times 60 is how many frames we would have to render. Now, back in the day when I was working in visual effects, we were talking about like using Pentium 4s processors, okay, with like 400 megahertz processors, right? So that's what we were using at the time. And it would be taking us like 45 minutes per frame to render. 45 minutes for every single frame. And there's 24 frames in 1 second, 60 seconds in a minute, 60 minutes in an hour. I mean, so you do the math. It was a hell of a lot. And we had what we called a little render farm. We had 5 computers set up. So all the computers were working on frames at different times. So we would try to chug through as much as we could. And it's extremely time consuming. Like we would do some work on a shot, then set the computers to rendering and go away for 3 days and then come back 3 days later to get our finished rendered project. Obviously, processors and computers are much, much faster now. You have big visual effects houses that don't have 4 or 5 computers in a closet rendering. They have like 2,000 or 3,000 computers that are rendering all the time. And they charge for, these visual effects companies will charge for the processing time they use in their render farms. Obviously, they spend a lot of money on their render farms. A render farm is just a whole bunch of computers and a whole bunch of processors that do nothing but render out visual effects, okay? That's a render farm. So they definitely charge for the use of the render farm, but that's not the big expense. The big expense in visual effects are the visual effects artists. You want to know how big this industry is? Think about it this way. Next time you go to a DC or Marvel movie, okay, and you sit down and you stay for the credits because you want to see if there's after credit scenes, everything goes by, hey, grips, camera people, blah, 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 blah. And then you get to the visual effects credits. And it's like thousands of names, like 8 different visual effects companies with like 200 artists on each one. Just the screen fills with nothing but names and blah, blah. Like seriously, next time you're in one of these big, high profile, big budget blockbuster visual effects heavy movies, sit there and watch the visual effects credits. It's overwhelming. It's staggering. It's intimidating. It's huge. And all of those artists are full-time professional artists, and you are paying them to do their time. And you got thousands of them, man. You got a huge number of visual effects artists. That is the main expense of visual effects. Yes, there is rendering time. Yes, you have to lease out the render farms from the visual effects companies doing their things. Some companies have their own, all that kind of stuff. But when it comes down to it, the big cost comes from the sheer number of artists, and you are paying their full-time salary, who a lot of them work on a film for a year. And if if that artist makes $120,000 a year, take that artist and times him by 400 and you are starting to get into monumental numbers as far as expenses go. And then you're paying executives, and some artists make a lot less than 120, but some make a whole lot more than 120. I mean, it goes on and on and on. A lot of little expenses on top of that. So yeah, the main thing about visual effects will always be, the main cost will always be that sheer ridiculous number of artists who have to dedicate all their time to that project. And again, I encourage you, next time you're in one of these movies, just wait and watch for the visual effects credits, because that by far is the biggest chunk of credits that roll at the end of a movie, at least the big visual effects movies. All right, let's move on to the next question. And the next question today comes to us from Last Journey. And Last Journey writes, "Hey, John, love the show." Oh, now we're getting into the title question this week. "Do you think Marvel movies enjoy a double standard? Although I enjoy almost all of their movies, films like Iron Man 2, Thor 2, and Avengers 2 were notably weaker than the rest, and Thor and Iron Man 2 I just didn't like. I'm aware I'm aware of this, and it doesn't mean other people can't enjoy them. I feel that they had a lot of issues and were overlooked by many people, and allowed for the films to be received more positively when maybe they shouldn't have been. All right, thanks a lot for the question, Last Journey. And it was funny, before the show even started today, the live chat board was going, and a lot of people were already discussing this, talking. Some people saying, no, there's no double standard because of the title of the video. Some people saying, yes, there's absolutely a double standard. And here's the thing where we all have to be really, really careful. So let's take me and Star Wars prequels, for example, right? I don't like the Star Wars prequels. I think they're garbage. More than garbage. I think the Star Wars prequels are giant bags of shit. That's just how I feel about the movies. However, what I will never do is say, if somebody likes those prequel movies, I'm not going to make up an excuse for somebody else liking the prequels. I think it's great if somebody loves the prequels, because I want people to enjoy themselves and love. Like, I think they're bags of shit. I think they're terrible. And if you want to ask me why I think they're terrible, I'll sit down and give all my reasons why I think the Star Wars prequels are terrible. I'll be happy to discuss that. But what I will never do is say, if you are somebody who loves the prequels, go, well, you're an idiot for liking the prequels. Or you have a double standard. How can you say you like the prequels when this other movie has the same issues as the prequels, and you say you don't like that movie, but you like the prequels? You have a double standard. Like, I will never do that. Because that in and of itself is a double standard. We all all movie fandom, for me, it always comes down to this. All film is subjective. Like, you may sit down, I may sit down and watch the prequels, and I'll say that this thing is shit, this thing is shit, this thing is shit, and this thing is shit. But that's true because that's my perspective of it. But if somebody else looks at the movie and doesn't see those issues as being terrible, like the way I saw them, then they don't have a double standard. They just have a different opinion. Like, if they thought this in the prequels was a problem, and they thought this in another movie was the same thing, and it was a problem in the other movie, and they hate one but love the other, that's a double standard. But just because I look at this one thing in the prequels and think this is a terrible thing, doesn't mean somebody else is going to look at it and think it's a terrible thing. They like what they like, and we should celebrate that. It doesn't mean you should hide your opinion about it. Doesn't mean you should lie about your opinion. I'm never shy about saying what I think about the prequels, but I will never put anybody else down for loving the prequels if that's what they love, nor will I tell them that they have double standards, because according to my point of view, the issues in the prequels are the same as the issues in that other movie you say isn't good, so if you don't say the prequels aren't good, then you have a double standard. No, it just means that they look at the prequels differently than I have looked at them. You know, some people I've read when talking about Marvel movies, and the whole reason this thing comes up is because, generally speaking, critically and audience, the Marvel movies have gotten better receptions than the DC movies. So far. We've got a long way to go. So far, Wonder Woman has started to turn that boat around. And so people look at that, and what we often do, you hear me talk about this a lot, what we as fans often do is we make up excuses for other people's opinions. It's like, wait a minute, your opinion is different than mine on this? Then I have to think of an excuse as to why your opinion is different. I know. I'll make up the excuse that you have a double standard. That's the excuse. See, you don't just have a different opinion of the movie. You just have an ulterior motive. You have a double standard. It's like, that's what we do. We make up excuses to make ourselves feel better about the fact that other people have different opinions than us. When really, other people having different opinions than us should not threaten us at all. Like, look, I don't care. I like Batman vs. Superman. I gave a positive review to Batman vs. Superman, to Suicide Squad, to Man of Steel, and to Wonder Woman. And I stand by that. I don't need you to like Batman vs. Superman for me to feel secure in the fact that I like Batman vs. Superman. And that's the big problem with a lot of people. A lot of people just are insecure. This like, wait a minute, why not just, I like Batman versus Superman, but they say they don't. Now I feel insecure, so I got to attack that person to undermine their opinion. No, I'm fine. Look, I don't like the original Blade Runner, and everybody loves the original Blade Runner. But you know what? I'm secure enough, in my opinion, that I'm okay that I'm in the minority on that. I'm fine with that. I have no problem with that. And I don't need other people who like Blade Runner to look bad in order for me to feel better about not liking it. I don't need that. I like what I like. I don't like what I don't like. And I celebrate that you like what you like or you don't like what you don't like, regardless of whether it's the same as my opinion or not. That's the best thing about being a film fan. Absolutely express your opinion. Absolutely have the majority opinion or the minority opinion. Absolutely. There's nothing wrong with that, but there's nothing wrong with other people disagreeing with you. And we don't need to make up excuses for other people having different opinions than us. Anyway, that's just my thought on that whole thing about double standards with the other thing. Because what it often comes down to, and I challenged somebody in the chat board earlier, somebody said Marvel does have a double standard because they have these problems with their movies and people just ignore them. And what I said to them was, or other people just didn't see those things as problems the way you saw them as a problem. So they're not ignoring the problem. Just to them, that wasn't a problem, and to you it was. And that's fine. That's fine. They're not right or wrong. You're not right or wrong. We just had different experiences and we're sharing our opinions. You don't need to start making up excuses for other people having different opinion than you. Anyway, that's just the way I look at it. That's just the way I approach it. Jump into the comments section, leave your thoughts, keep the discussion going. All right, guys, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go over, this is the most awkward part of the show because I'm trying to read a scrolling chat board and engage with the camera at the same time. But this is the part where I'm going to go over here and take your questions who are watching live right now. And there's like 1,000 of you in the chat board right now on a Saturday afternoon. Wow, thank you, guys. So go ahead, start putting in your questions, and I will take your questions. And let's see here. We got one or two trolls in there, so we're going to get rid of them. Let's see. John, could you do a critique? Oh, I missed it. See, that's the thing. This thing is difficult to do. Okay. John, could you do a critique video on each prequel film? No. Who's asking that? Can you do a critique video on each prequel? CalLFan49. I love the username. No. Why bother? Everybody already knows what I think about the prequel films. I have done DVD commentaries on all the prequel films. I have talked ad nauseum on all the prequel films and why I like the few things in them that I like and why I dislike the vast majority of things that I dislike in them. And other people have done big video things of it. I just don't see the point in me going back and doing it again. So no, I won't be dedicating any more of my time to the prequel films. But thank you so much for the question. Okay, let's see. Rory Calhoun is writing a question I get a lot. When will we get a Batman Beyond movie? Hopefully never. I don't think we'll ever get a Batman Beyond movie because the vast majority of the public know who Batman is. And to them, Batman is Bruce Wayne. People don't know the name Terry. They just don't. And Warner Brothers knows Batman is their most valuable property, and he's their most valuable property because he's Bruce Wayne. So I don't think the average film-going audience has no interest in a Batman Beyond movie. This is just my opinion. My opinion is the average film-going audience has zero interest in a Batman Beyond movie. They have loads of interest in the Bruce Wayne traditional Batman. So I don't think we're going to get a Batman Beyond movie, other than maybe something animated or something like that, sure. But other than that, no. Arcadial writes, is Power Rangers a dead franchise? I don't know that I'd call it a dead franchise. I think there's still enough there with the Power Rangers IP to do something. Look, you guys all know I thought Power Rangers was a stupid idea. I thought them doing the most recent movie was a stupid idea. And hey, I'll call myself out. I was pleasantly surprised by the movie. I said forever that the movie was going to suck. That was my prediction. Everything I saw in front of me made me predict and have create an opinion that I thought the movie was going to suck. But that's why you leave your opinion at the door when you go in to watch a movie. Because I left all my baggage. I left my pre-existing opinion of Power Rangers at the door. And I went into the movie to watch with an open mind. And hell, wouldn't you be surprised? I liked the Power Rangers movie. I thought it was fun. I enjoyed it. And I'll go on record. I'm disappointed that it doesn't look like we're going to get a sequel. I'm disappointed. I hope we do. I think there's still a chance we will. But even if we don't get a sequel to this Power Rangers movie, I don't think the franchise is dead. I think we'll probably sometime down the road see another go at Power Rangers. So we'll see this. Anyway, Cabot Pankaj writes, what current franchise can top the MCU's box office? I think Star Wars or JK's Wizarding World. No, they won't. No, they won't. For one very big reason. Marvel is putting out 3 films a year. Star Wars is putting out one film a year. The Wizarding World that J.K. Rowling has set up, or Rowling, or however you pronounce J.K.'s name, the Wizarding World is doing one movie every 2 years. So no, they're not going to come close to making the box office that Marvel films do, or the box office that DC films are going to do, because they're going to be doing multiple films a year. They cannot come close. However, like the annual Star Wars movie can make bigger box office than any other Marvel movie that year, but collectively, no, Marvel is going to rule the box office because they're putting out 3 damn big blockbusters a year, and there's just no way one movie can keep up with that. Unless that one movie comes out and makes like $2.5 billion, but I don't see that happening anytime soon. Thanks a lot for the question. Let's see. Trying to keep up with all the questions here. Sorry, guys. This is very, very difficult trying to read these questions while I'm doing. Anyway, I think I'm just going to stop right there. I'll take one more. A. Clay writes, should War for the Planet of the Apes have opened on a different release date? I don't know what the hell they were thinking. Honestly, opening War for the Planet of the Apes the week after Spider-Man Homecoming opens? Are you kidding me? I mean, I think 2 weeks is fair. I wouldn't pay with 2 weeks is fine, because usually when people are going to see a movie, most people will see it within its first 2 weeks of release. So that's fine. But opening War for the Planet of the Apes the week after Spider-Man? Really? I never understood that. So I think the month was fine. I just think that specifically opening just 1 week after Spider-Man Homecoming, like on Spider-Man Homecoming's second weekend, you're opening your film. I just thought that was foolish. I thought that was a bad move. And I mean, it's unfathomable to think, but War for the Planet of the Apes might actually lose money. And it's a really good movie, but it might actually lose money. Anyway, guys, that will do it for me for this installment of the John Campea podcast. And I said I had a couple announcements that I'm going to make, and I am going to make them right now. And you'll hear me talk about this a little bit later. Sorry, guys, it's really hot in here. I'm in Burbank, and I turned the air conditioner off so you guys can have better sound quality. But it means once I get more than 10 minutes into the show, I start sweating a lot. Anyway, I got an announcement that I want to share with all you guys. That I'm nervous and excited about all at the same time, and all these things are all connected. Okay, so as many of you guys know, I left Collider and their corporate overlords, Complex Media and Verizon. And some people didn't know that Complex Media owned Collider and Verizon bought Complex Media. We had 2 corporate overlords over there. And before that, I was working at AMC Theaters, and they were a big corporate overlord. And I loved working with those companies. So as far as corporate overlords go, AMC, Complex Media, Verizon were great corporate overlords. They were great companies to work for. But, I started doing what I do as an independent content creator, doing the movie blog, where I had total freedom to give all the honesty, creative freedom, and standards that I felt were right for doing what I was doing. And my mission with my YouTube channel, this is my mission for my YouTube channel and my videos. And I create 70 to 90 videos a month. But my mission is to create informative, challenging, and hopefully entertaining videos to contribute to the overall online fan community. That's my goal. And after my best friend died, I realize, hey, life's too short to be working in a situation that I'm not satisfied with, or that I'm not happy with, or I don't really think I'm able to do the things I really want to do. And so I made the decision, that and a few other reasons I'm going to keep private, I made the decision to leave Collider and launch out on my own YouTube channel. And the response and support you guys have been giving me is fantastic and great. But, it's challenging because I no longer have corporate overlords that are just feeding me paychecks. And it's expensive to commit all my time full-time to creating 70 to 90 videos a month to put up. So I had a whole bunch of you guys keep writing to me about this thing called Patreon. And you guys kept telling me about it and telling me about it and telling me about it. So finally I started to look into it. And basically Patreon is, because I had a lot of you guys telling me that I want to help contribute to what this channel is doing. I want to help contribute to the mission of the channel and the mission of the videos. I want to contribute to it. You should use Patreon. So I'm like, okay. So I looked into Patreon. So I am going to be launching a Patreon because I don't want what I do anymore to be corporate funded. and to be under the rule of a corporation. I just don't want that. Like, all the best movie news sites now are all owned by corporations. A lot of the big YouTube stuff are owned by corporations. Some still really good independent ones, but a lot of them are that way. And I really want to be an independent creative content creator, and I'm going to need help. I got to admit, it's really tough for people to admit that they're going to need help to do what they want to do, but I need to admit I need help to do what I want to do. So I'm going to be launching a Patreon, and where you can choose, if you sign up to be one of my patrons, you choose to either contribute $2 a month or $5 a month or $15 a month. And each one of those things will get you something a little bit different. Now, a lot of you guys noticed that I stopped putting out the audio podcast of the show. The reason I stopped putting out the audio only version of the podcast was because it took extra effort and it cost me money for the hosting services I was using to do the audio podcast, and I wasn't making any money on it. So basically, I was doing all that energy and effort and work and paying for a podcasting service while getting no income from it whatsoever. So ultimately, I was losing money because instead of watching the YouTube videos, which I would make some money on, people were listening to the audio only thing, which I wasn't making any money on. It was costing me money. So I stopped. But anybody who becomes one of the patrons on Patreon will have access to the audio only podcast of the show. So I'm really excited to do that. I'm also going to be doing DVD commentaries for patrons, but there's going to be other benefits as well for people who become patrons. Don't worry, my main channel here with all my 70 to 90 videos a month are always just going to be free. Thank you so much for being a viewer and a supporter that way, just by being here and commenting and liking and being part of the show. I appreciate that very much. So all that stuff is always going to be free, but I'm going to introduce some new things for my content that will be for patrons, so that way you guys can support what I'm doing and I can continue to do the stuff that I want to do. And hopefully, if we get enough patrons too, we can get to the point where, because right now I'm a total one-man show, maybe if we get enough patrons, we can get to the point where I can I can hire a video editor, or I could hire a graphics person, or another on-camera talent, somebody who's really good and deserves to get paid to get on camera and create content. And hopefully with your help, we can do stuff like that. So I'm not putting out the link yet. I'm going to be launching my Patreon account a little bit later today. I just want to give you guys who are kind enough to join me on Saturday live the opportunity. And here's the fun thing. If just 1% of the people who subscribe to my YouTube channel sign up to be patrons, 1%, it'll fund everything we want to do. It'll fund everything we want to do if 1% of people sign up. So anyway, and by all means, if you're somebody who you're broke, you don't have a job, you barely make ends meet, you're just getting by a little bit, I don't need your money. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for just coming and watching the videos. You contribute that way, and I appreciate you very much. Don't feel the need to contribute financially. But if you want to contribute financially to what we do here and to keep this channel live for, like I said, 70 to 90, maybe 100 videos a month that we're going to create, it would be great if you jumped on for that. Keep your eyes open for when I put up the Patreon link. Again, guys, thank you so much for joining me, taking time out of your Saturday to be a part of the show. I really appreciate it. Thanks so much, guys. I'm going to be doing a Facebook Ask Me Anything probably a little bit later today. So if you got any questions about any of this stuff, I'll be more than happy to take them there. So thanks a lot again, guys. My name's John Campea, and until next time, bye-bye.